Okay, so you've probably never heard of them, but there's this small group of scientists quietly fighting some of the biggest battles for our health and our planet. They're kind of like quiet radicals. And in this explainer, we're going to dive into why this group, the Collegium Ramazzini, matters now more than ever. So, you might be wondering, where does a group like this get its power? Well, it's not from big money lobbying or fancy PR campaigns. This quote really says it all. Their authority comes from evidence. Their influence is built on decades of just solid, undeniable scientific work that's really, really hard to ignore. And that's the real kicker, isn't it? It brings us to the central question we're tackling here. In this day and age, why is the simple idea of just letting the evidence speak for itself considered, well, a radical act? To get that answer, we really have to look at the moment we're living in. Because this isn't just, a tough climate for science. What we're seeing is an active, deliberate dismantling of the very protections that science helps to build. Here's how the game is often played. You're told there's a choice to be made. You can either have health protection or you can have economic growth. Public health gets framed as this barrier, this thing holding back progress. And this is no accident. It's a very intentional strategy to weaken regulations by making it seem like protecting people is just bad for the bottom line. And believe me, this isn't just some abstract theory. It's happening right out in the open. We see it when flawed logic, like something called dose averaging, which basically waters down a high poison reading by averaging it with a bunch of low ones, is used to allow more arsenic. We see it in the push to swap out animal testing for these black box computer models. And check out this double standard. Protections for old, known poisons like lead are rolled back. But for new chemicals, suddenly the claim is there's insufficient data to act. It's a calculated way to create paralysis by attacking the science itself. So in a world like this, who actually pushes back? Well, that brings us right to the hero of our story, the Collegium Ramazzini. You can think of them as an army of evidence. So what is this Collegium? It's a small, international group of scientists, but what makes them so unique is where their authority comes from. It's not political power, it's not industry money. It comes purely from the credibility of their work. They're a collective of experts who just refuse to be quiet about what the science is telling them. And this quote, this just nails their whole approach. They have this amazing ability to cut through all the noise, all the complicated jargon, and just state the facts. The science is clear. The choice is political, not technical. What they're really saying is, hey, we've done the science, the data's in. Whether you decide to poison a community or not, that's a policy choice. That's on you. The science part isn't up for debate anymore. So how does a tiny group of scientists actually fight back against such powerful forces? Well, it turns out they have a very specific and pretty effective strategy. Their first key weapon is something called institutional memory. Now, this isn't just about knowing your history. It's the active, living process of passing down values and knowledge, and a commitment to telling the truth from one generation of scientists to the next. It's what keeps the group from losing its way. And you can literally trace this legacy in action. It's like a torch being passed. You start with giants like Irving Silikoff, who didn't just study asbestos, he forced people to pay attention to it. He then trained Henry Anderson, who spent his whole career making sure that science landed on the desks of decision makers. That commitment flows right to people like Philip Landrigan, who took on polluters head on. And today's fellows? They're doing the exact same thing, mentoring the next wave of truth tellers. The second part of their strategy is just as crucial. They use global collaboration as a method. Their membership isn't just international by chance. It's a core part of their strategy. And this isn't about, just checking a diversity box. It fundamentally changes the conversation. When researchers from Zambia are presenting on the real-world health effects of lead mining, it's not some abstract case study. When scientists from Ghana talk about the human cost of taking apart the world's electronic waste, they're talking about where our old phones and computers actually end up. These are truly voices from the front lines. And that's why their authority is so potent. It's not just data from a sterile lab. It's the combination of lived human experience backed up by rigorous science. That's a perspective that's pretty hard to just dismiss or ignore. So, we've got this small, powerful group of scientists using evidence as their main weapon. But let's bring this all back to the real world. Why does this actually matter, right here, right now, beyond the walls of a science lab? Because the stakes couldn't be higher and they're not hypothetical. The arsenic limits at some mine in Idaho will affect real people. The documented suppression of research on chemical toxicity means we're all flying blind into new dangers. And yeah, rescinding protections for lead, a poison we have known for decades causes permanent brain damage in kids, is something that's being actively discussed. At the end of the day, these policy choices determine whether children get poisoned. It is that stark, it is that simple. So what can the Collegium really do in this fight? Look, they can't force a government to act, but they have a clear playbook. First, they hold the line. They maintain a space where the science stays clear and uncompromised. Then, they state the implications of that science, honestly. They show up and provide expert testimony. And this next one is critical. They create a permanent public record when decisions go against the science. That creates accountability. And maybe most important of all, they inspire the next generation to be truth tellers, not just researchers.
And this all brings us to a much, much bigger question, one that's really a test for our entire society. Can institutions that are built on evidence, like this one, actually survive in an era of intense political pressure and what's called regulatory capture? Can they stay honest when it would be so much easier and probably more profitable to just stay quiet?
The Collegium's answer to that is a defiant yes. And it's all built on this incredibly powerful foundational belief. This is their entire philosophy in just 3 words. Evidence creates obligations. The very act of discovering a truth, of finding a harm, brings with it a responsibility, an obligation to do something about it.
And so that leaves us with one final critical question to think about. And it's a question for all of us, not just for scientists or for people in power. When the science speaks, clearly and honestly, who is obligated to listen?